Hey, what's up everyone? It's been a minute since I've done a video, but today we're going to go over how to install this Auxbeam 8-gang switch. It is installed on my Hybrid RAV4 to the front. You'll notice a cable running here. That's just how I have it installed, and I'm going to walk you through that now, how I have it set up. Alright, coming over to the right, or I guess technically the left-hand side of the vehicle, we have the fuse box here. On top, you'll notice the Auxbeam switch assembly. I have that screwed on here and mounted. I did use some silicone there. You can kind of see some residue just to try and make sure it was, as watertight as possible on the sides. There's a cable here. If you'll notice that I drilled a hole, I think that's for this guy. This is the big kill switch that runs to the assembly, to here, and then that cable just doubles back and then winds down into there. Same as this tiny wire, which is the ignition switch that's plugged into a fuse inside the fuse box, which I'll show you in a second. But that's kind of what it looks like just from the outside. Again, ignore all my mess of wires. I'm not the cleanest on installs like this, but I mean, that's kind of what it's going to end up looking like. You have these wires running up through the side here. I could get some wire looms, put some covers on these just to clean it up a little bit better, but for now, that's kind of what it looks like. And remember, this is a hybrid, right? You see the orange cable there. A lot of folks don't think you can hook up a switch relay like this to the front, but you can. I was one of those that didn't think you could, but a buddy of mine showed me how, so let's see how it's hooked up. There's a bunch of different fuses, 8 fuses in total. This is the ignition switch. This guy is, if I can remember, that is for the controller that lives inside the vehicle with the 8 buttons. Of course, ground, and then power. Okay, assembly and covers popped off. It's a little tight once you get everything installed to get back under this fuse box cover. This is this one. I believe it's the injector, but it's the first one in that little block there. That's what I have the switch assembly attached to just at the moment. I'll probably move this guy back to USB 2 just because everybody usually uses USB 2 for any kind of external accessories like this. Now the key thing here for this whole thing to work properly is you'll notice the red power is actually bolted down to this little bolt here. This plastic piece, if you pull up hard enough, it pretty much comes free and it bends back. You're technically gonna break this plastic piece, but all you have to do is pull up from this side. It's gonna break a little bit, but then it still stays attached and it just looks like that. Okay, so that red power wire, right, routes up out of the box. That's where I drilled the hole. You'll notice that's where the fuse, right, is also attached in that hole back there. And that comes out of this fuse box cover. This routes to the kill switch, routes to the switch assembly. The fuse wire comes out of there and also attaches into the fuse box. And just to reiterate again, power comes all the way out to this. I'll get to the negative in a second. And then the ignition switch is right there. That goes to the controller in the front. So, negative. That I have grounded and routed to this bolt right here. Chose to use this guy just to keep things, a little more tucked away. Again, still working on wiring, but that's generally how I have it set up. One thing I wanted to mention before we move on is you'll notice these holes here, right, where the wires come through. You want to make sure when you install this with screws that this kind of overhangs the top of the fuse box, right, so the wires can come up and in to the fuses here. Otherwise, you're not going to have any space to route wires up. So just make sure this whole thing is over to the left enough, basically, if you install it this way. Okay, got all that covered. Now the switch harness, I have this routed up through here. Got a big bundle of wires here, and then you can tuck this wire, this piece comes off, this whole plastic piece, right? That pops off, and then I routed it. This piece pops off as well. And you can tuck it all behind there and then route it through your door jamb. Come over here. So then through the door jamb, I just have it routed here. I went under the weather stripping, dropped it down a little bit, and then it plugs in right here. Popped this gray trim off, wire sitting behind there, and then it kind of comes in back there. And then I used double-sided VHB tape to get this all installed.